Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we will start talking about the nervous system. So let's begin. The nervous system has two main divisions, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is everything that lies within the bone, means the brain, the cerebral hemispheres, the cerebellum, the brainstem that lies within the cavity of the skull, and the spinal cord, which lies in the cavity of the vertebral column. The peripheral nervous system consists of two consists mainly of nerves, which are enclosed in bundles, surrounded by means that it's thrown in fascicles, surrounded by perineurium. Its long fibers or axons. These axons that connect the CNS to every other part of the body, either by sending motor impulses or receiving sensory information from all over the body. Impulses or arising from the nervous system are called efferent impulses or efferent through efferent nerves, and impulses received by the CNS, means coming from the body to the CNS, called the afferent impulses or sensory impulses, or afferent or through afferent nerves. The peripheral nervous system is subdivided into three subsystems: the somatic nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, and the enteric nervous system. Both the autonomic and enteric nervous system are involuntary systems. The autonomic nervous system is subdivided into sympathetic and parasympathetic. The sympathetic nervous system we use in cases of fight or for fight or flight, called that's how it's called, the nervous system of fight or flight, means in cases of emergencies. While the parasympathetic system is used in the relaxed state, and it's rather responsible for many enteric functions. Because of the complex innervation of gastrointestinal tract, that's why they are subdivided or gave it its own category in the nervous system, which is called the enteric nervous system. And it's the nervous system that controls the functions of the GIT. Now, the last system is called the somatic nervous system, composed of somatic nerves that convey impulses from the central nervous system to the body, or receive impulses from the body to the nervous system. So it's either motor or sensory. And it's voluntary, by the way, opposite those of the autonomic and enteric nervous systems, which impulses are involuntary system. Now, this is a drawing of the sympathetic and parasympathetic outflow. The parasympathetic outflow is called the craniosacral outflow because it originates or sends its impulses through some nerves, some cranial nerves, mainly oculomotor and facial, glossopharyngeal, and vagus. That's 3, 7, 9, 10. And from the sacral segment, spinal cord segment S2 and 3 and 4, to control some pelvic functions. That's why it's called craniosacral outflow. While the sympathetic system is called the thoracolumbar outflow because it originates in neurons present in the spinal cord segments from T1 till L2. You see that? It's in the lateral horn of the gray matter of the spinal cord, which is present only in these segments from T1 through L2, and distributed all over the body through the sympathetic chain, as you can see here. Okay, So that's the craniosacral outflow, which is the parasympathetic, and the thoracolumbar outflow, which is the sympathetic. At the cellular level, the nervous system is composed of neurons and neuroglia. The neurons are the electrical cells that originate impulses or receives impulses, electrochemical impulses actually, and send them through fibers called axons and communicate with each other through either electrical synapses or chemical synapses. And in the case of chemical synapses, they use the neurotransmitters to be released at chemical synapses. That's why it resembles in a way the hormonal system or the endocrine system. The endocrine system was included with the nervous system, but with much slower and distant response through hormones secreted. The cell that receives a synaptic signals from a neuron, it may be excited, inhibited, or modulated. Along with neurons, the nervous system contains other specialized cells called glial cells, or it's the glue that connects the neurons together. We will talk about them in a short while. These are the different cells or glial cells of the nervous system, starting from the ependymal cells. You can see that it faces the CSF, the astrocytes, which with their podocyte processes on the blood vessels, the oligodendrocytes that myelinates the cells of the CNS. Remember that. Cells of the same function that myelinates the peripheral nervous system are called Schwann cells, and oligodendrocytes and microglial cells that has a rather phagocytic function and originates from a different cell precursors than the other types of cells of the CNS. This is an example of a multipolar neuron, as you can see here, with the cytoplasm, the nucleus, and the nucleolus inside, because it's a very active cell. This is the axon hillock, which is the beginning of the axon, and usually it's devoid of Nissl granules or ribosomes that scattered all over the cell, with multiple cell processes called dendrites that receive the information from nearby neurons. This is the axon terminals, where it synapses on different parts of the nearby neuron. The central nervous system sends signals from one cell to other. Malfunction of the nervous system can occur as a result of genetic defects, physical damage, or trauma, or toxicity, or infection. In the peripheral nervous system, the most common problem is failure of nerve conduction, which can be due to different causes, including diabetic neuropathy, demyelinating disorders like multiple sclerosis, for example, and amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. The structure of the nervous system, the nerves are cylindrical bundles of fibers, as you can see here, called fascicles. They originate from the brain or the spinal cord and branch repeatedly to innervate every part of the body. On the microscopic level, examination shows that the nerve consists primarily of axon, as you can see here. This is a myelinated axon with interrupted at points called the nodes of Ranvier, where the impulse travels, instead of traveling all over the axon continuously, it jumps from node to node ensuring a faster conduction of impulse. This is called the saltatory conduction of nerve impulse, and this is the major function or main function of the myelin sheath, besides insulating the axon, is to provide the saltatory conduction of the nerve impulse, which is much faster than the continuous, or what happens in demyelinated axons. This is a picture showing the a section in a nerve where the nerve fascicles surrounded by perineurium. The fascia covering the nerve itself, it's called the epineurium, and the surrounding each nerve fiber is the endoneurium. Cells of the nervous system, you can divide them into excitatory cells, that is neurons, and non-excitatory cells, and those are called the glial cells. Neurons, as mentioned, they are excitatory cells. They communicate with each other via synapses. These synapses membrane to membrane junctions that contain molecular compounds that allows rapid transmission of signals, either electrical or chemical, much faster in electrical, by the way. Hundreds of different types of neurons exist with a wide variety of morphologies and functions. This includes sensory neurons and motor neurons. Sensory neurons that receive signals from the surface of the body and inside of the body and send to the CNS, and motor neurons that sends impulses to different parts of the body for different motor functions. This is an example of types of sensory neurons, varying from free nerve endings to Pacinian corpuscle, which is a special type for receptors for deep pressure, for example. This is a sensory cell, and another sensory cell synapsing or sending their signals to the central nervous system. And this is an example of a typical spinal nerve conveying motor impulses to the different muscles of the body, the cell bodies of which lies in the anterior horn of the gray matter of the spinal cord, with their axons extending through nerves to the different muscles of the body. The dorsal horn of the gray matter receives a sensory signal from the body after, and it's through a type of neurons called the pseudo-unipolar neurons that forms the dorsal root ganglia of the spinal nerve. So actually, it receives impulse through the axon of the dorsal of the pseudo-unipolar cell. Receives signals through the dendrite of the dorsal root ganglion cell, which are pseudo-unipolar cells, and send the signals through axons to the dorsal horn of the spinal cord. This is a picture showing you the chemical synapse, where at the synaptic terminal you can find the vesicles containing the neurotransmitters to be released, and calcium plays an important role in the release of the neurotransmitter in the chemical synapse. This is called the presynaptic membrane, and the synaptic cleft between the two neurons, and the postsynaptic membrane with receptors to receive the neurotransmitters released from the presynaptic terminal and respond as instructed by the release of this neurotransmitter. These are types of chemical synapses. According to the site, their synapse, there are axosecretory cells, axoaxonic cells, or axoaxonic synapses, I mean, axodendritic synapses, and this is the most common between neurons, axo extracellular, axosomatic with axon terminal ends on a nearby soma or a cell body of neurons. So these are different types of chemical synapses present in the nervous system. Glial cells, they are the connective tissue of the nervous system. They have the functions of the connective tissue, that is to support the various neurons of the nervous system. They supply it with nutrients and insulate neurons electrically to prevent the spread of the nerve impulse to the nearby unwanted neurons. For example, some of them pick up the excess neurotransmitters not picked up by the neurons, and some of the glial cells they are responsible for myelination of the neurons. Those that myelinate the cells of the CNS are called the oligodendrocytes, and those that myelinate the peripheral nervous system, the peripheral nervous system means the cranial nerves or the spinal nerves, called the Schwann cells. And we talked about the importance of myelin sheath before. Recent findings indicate that glial cells such as the microglia and astrocytes serve as important immune cells within the central nervous system. These two pictures to show you different types of these glial cells. This is an example of Schwann cells myelinating a nerve fiber that belongs to the peripheral nervous system. These are other types of cells called satellite cells around ganglia that support and supplies nutrients to the cells of the ganglia. These are the myelinating cells of the central nervous system called oligodendrocytes. They are similar to those that myelinate the peripheral nervous system, which are Schwann cells, as you can see here. And by the way, the oligodendrocytes, they do not myelinate only one axon, but multiple axons. That's why a disease hitting them, such as multiple sclerosis, has a devastating effect on the central nervous system. I hope you got the maximum benefit from this lecture, and thank you very much for watching.